Stacey Boehman, my new best friend. A few years ago, she was making a few $100,000 a year, but today she makes over 10 million. What changed in that short amount of time? Her thoughts, her mindset, how she viewed her business. Stacey was very specific in how she approaches things and thinks about things. And I would say that Stacey provides the most practical information on how to change your mind, on how to develop a mindset that creates success. A lot of times we hear people talk about the importance of mindset, but we are left without the tools to do something with that. That's why I wanted Stacey specifically as part of this series, because Stacey's entire body of work is on focusing on the thoughts that we are practicing that determine how we show up in our business. I was left feeling more confident after this conversation because I knew that whatever I wanted to create just took some practice. And that's what you're gonna get out of this conversation with Stacey Boehman.
We came up with the idea of my first core, foundational program, 2K for 2K. And I hated the name. I thought it was so dumb. No one was gonna buy it. All life coaches want is to make 100K. They don't care about 2K. It's not enough. I had all of these thoughts. And so we just made the decision in the room. And then I had to go after we made those decisions and spend the next 2 weeks selling myself on why this was the perfect offer, why I loved 2K for 2K, why it was actually so important that coaches focus on their first 2K. Every single thing about my offer, why was it amazing, and why was it going to be industry disrupting, industry changing. So I went from, I hate this offer, I think it's so stupid, no one's gonna buy it, Brooke's wrong, to this is going to revolutionize the industry. I'm gonna make a ton of money and I love this offer. So now I just know the secret, if you want to make a lot of money, is you choose your offer. You choose it wisely. You don't just you do think about your positioning and your client and all of those things, but the secret sauce is being willing to sell yourself on your offer so deeply that there are no more objections in your mind about your offer, and then you stop getting them from other people.
I think a lot of the marketing tactics or copywriting tactics that entrepreneurs develop is to compensate for the lack of belief that they have in their product or in their business. Now, knowing copywriting and selling is all important, but it's so much easier when you actually believe in what you're doing and what you're selling. Just recently, I had an experience where I developed a supplement for my company, Sheer Strength Labs, and I was working with the formulations team on making it the best product in the space. And even the formulator said something to the effect of, I've never developed a product this effective. This is gonna blow away all of the competition. That conversation left me so excited to go bring that product to the marketplace because I know I can show up in front of someone and say, I take this, I believe in this. It blows everything else out of the water. That amount of conviction creates conversions. And when you believe that you have the best product, you show up differently. That's what's so powerful about what Stacey is saying. It's not enough to try and sell something that just objectively looks good. You've got to believe it. And when you believe it, other people resonate with that, and it makes the sales process so much smoother. And the good news is you can coach yourself or train yourself into that belief. And if you're feeling some doubt about your product or your offer, that doubt is fixable.
It's not even about being an expert coach. It's asking really great questions of yourself. Why do I love this offer? Why do I think it's amazing? How do I know it's the right thing for my people? What is in it for them? What's the value for them? Is the value a no-brainer for them? How so? And answering all these questions, right? Why will this be revolutionary for them? Why will it change their life, right? And then imagining, I love doing this, is imagining what objections they might have, or what, if it's a physical product and they're standing in the store and they're holding two different products and they're there's yours and there's the competitors. What are they thinking? Just making it up. What do you think they're thinking? And then why do you think your product is the one they should buy? right? And when you get so clear in your mind about all of that, what do I imagine their objections will be? And then how do I address that in my own thoughts, in my own belief? Every time I do that, I get more certain about my offer, and then I communicate it with a different level of energy. I sell it with a different level of clarity, right? It just lands better to other people. Like, that's all people need in order to say yes and buy, is they need to know that whatever they're getting is going to be worth the money they spent, and they're going to have a great experience.
Right. I'm experiencing this myself, where I wrote a book called 12 Months to 1 Million. My entire shtick is building $1 million business. People who do the work build $1 million businesses. I have hundreds of case studies of people who built $1 million businesses. But it's a big belief to say, I'm going to go out and build $1 million business. And so I've been running up against that myself. And when I've been testing my languaging on saying, all right, let's just get you your first $10,000 launch. You don't even need to have a product ready yet. We can pre-sell it. We can do these free marketing tactics. Then there's less of a belief that needs to be overcome. But I'm going through the exact transition you're talking about right now. We're like, no, it should be $1 million business. No, we have all this proof for it. I don't want to go down and go into the entry level stuff about getting people over those hurdles. So I'm experiencing that myself, where I know you're right, and I'm feeling some resistance up against that. And I know a lot of people have experienced this too, where they may be selling a physical product that is higher priced than their competitors, and they're wrestling with, like, I know this is the best for my customers, but that data over there says that other people who are selling less are gonna make more money. So what do you work with your clients and students on in those early stages when they're building that bridge of beliefs? How are you working with somebody to actually coach them into conviction?
Yeah. So let me first say, if this seems a little like crazy town, the thing that's really helpful to know is that most people already know what the results have gotten them with changing up things within their offer over and over and over. You already know how that pans out. We don't know how it pans out particularly yet with creating conviction for your offer, creating belief in your offer. So, like, you could give yourself a time frame, a year, I would say at least a year of being willing to only work your mindset. And that will go right into my segue of how I work with my clients. Is I call it so in 200K, to make their first 200K, I call it a simple offer. And then when they get into my $2 million mastermind, we call it a scalable offer. But I make them choose all of the components of their offer. I don't make them. I tell them to choose the components of their offer. So maybe it's, for example, with mine, 200K mastermind, it's $25,000. It's a 6-month mastermind, right? And then I have the process for it. And we don't change any of those things. That's the game. So when they come into the mastermind, we have a live event, and at the live event, we call it a C sheet, but it's a circumstance sheet. We call all of these things circumstances, and they write it all down. These are all my circumstances that are neutral, that aren't going to change for the next 6 months. And then the only thing I'm allowed to change is my thoughts and my feelings about it. That's it. And then we go to work every single day, every single week in that mastermind. Everything we do, they do peer coaching calls, they get one-on-one coaching calls with a coach, and everything is geared towards finding every ounce of resistance, objections that they have in their mind, or that they imagine other people have, which is really just your own thoughts, right? When you imagine what other people might say. And then we go to work to clean all of that up.
Most of us have a story in our brain already about our offer and our product. And usually it's a doubtful story. We think about, it costs too much, or I don't have the profit margin, or it has this problem. Like, we're sizing ourselves up against the competition. It takes a while to untie all those knots. But every time you untie one of them, you're more convicted. You're more persuasive. Your conversion rate is probably going to go up. So it's important to give yourself a window of time to practice this process of coaching yourself into belief. But every time you make any progress, your profits are probably going to go up. Your sales are probably going to go up. And that will convince you that your own conviction is what moves the needle, and it will encourage you to keep going. Now let's just make this super practical. If I show up on a video and I'm like, we're doing this event in April, you can come if you want, versus me showing in front of the camera and being like, the Capitalism Conference is the best event in the space. And I reserve a year of my life to plan this event because the transformations that happen here are second to none, right? Very different energy. Which one of those is likely to create more conversions? When I believe it. And that takes time. So I love this process that Stacey outlines of asking yourself the questions about your offer and what the objections might be, and then giving yourself the conviction and the clarity for how your offer addresses those questions. If you address them in yourself, you have a very easy time addressing them in potential customers and clients.
And like, yes, I also have a sales background, so I teach them a lot of things like thinking about your best client when you're talking to them and like only thinking about them. So many people are selling to the people who don't want their product or their offer, or like are really hard to sell. Like Simon Sinek calls them laggards, like the people that would be the last people to buy, right? There's a lot of arguing that happens in people's marketing, arguing with the people who are never going to buy, instead of talking directly to the people who are thinking about buying and just need the yes to be easy. Maybe this will be a good visual for everyone to kind of think about. I actually did this on a webinar once. I drew like 100 stick figures. And then I highlighted 10 of them. Like I filled them in with like all black, 10 of them. And I said, what our brain is, there's 100 people, and out of 100 people, 10 might be your best clients, the people who are ready to say yes to you, who are digging everything that you put down, right? Or the people who are going to naturally walk in and be attracted to your packaging on the store shelf, right? There's 10 of them out of 100. Our brain is trained to focus on the 90 people who are not interested and speak just to them. And we have to train our brain to only see those 10 people and only think about those 10 people and expand our awareness of those 10 people to where it feels like those 10 people are 100 people. And we only speak to them, we only create things for them, and they become our entire reality. But when you're failing, when you're out there trying to sell your product and you're failing, all your brain wants to think about is those 90 people who are saying no. There's the rub. That's where you have to get in there, and that's the difficult, hard work. I learned this pitching when I was selling, ShamWows or mops in Walmarts and places across. I would get 100 people at my little stage, and I would have 20 minutes to sell them. And there would be people there that would be hanging on every word I'm saying. And then there would be people in the back crossing their arms and going, "Where's it made? China?" Right? And heckling me. And so if I focused on those people, if I let them get to me, if I let them create an emotional response for me, I would sell nothing. But if I did not engage with them emotionally or mentally at all, and I stayed focused on, even if it was just one person in the audience nodding their head the whole time, like, yes, yes, yes. If I focused on them, there's like so many people that are just waiting to be sold. They're like kind of on the cusp. I would sell to not just the person that's nodding their head the whole time, but all the people on the cusp as well. So it was like either the heckler or me. We're going to turn all those cusp people, we're going to sell them, right? Turn them onto our side. And it's just where my focus went. That's it.
I know an entrepreneur is going to fail when I hear them say that their product is for anyone who might like blank, because then they don't know who their real target customer is. What Stacey is saying here is that you focus on the 10 people who give a crap, the 10 people who match the offer that you have for the marketplace, and you ignore the 90. I just call this picking your person, picking the person that you're helping with a transformation. In both cases, you're focusing on the person who is most likely to be receptive of your offer. You don't have to sell to the entire world. You don't even want to sell to the entire world. You want to sell to the people who value what you have the most. That gives you the clarity, the profit margin, and the focus to be able to go out and build a great company with people who are truly passionate about your brand and become evangelists for your product or your business.
The thing that I want to say before we get off here, just to make for everyone to hear, that I think I do above par for a lot of even coaches in the industry who study this work, and far above anyone who has has never coached themselves, is I allow myself to take as much time as it takes. So we sometimes, when we approach this work, feel very entitled to, like, well, I had one launch that went bad, and then I had another launch that went bad, and I should be over this by now. I've been working on this thought. Like, I worked on this thought for a whole week. And I'm like, but would you give it a year? Would you give it 3 years? I teach my clients this idea of the 3-year plan, and creating, it's essentially just how much money you're going to make for 3 years, broken up, and how you're going to sell the things. And then what you need to do from where you are now at the end of the year 3, what have you done and what needs to change? And then you work backwards. You start on those things immediately in year 1, because it's really going to take 3 years to do it. We always think it's going to take less time than it does. And so I always tell them, like, I give them that concept, right? So I give myself, even for my goals, right? I give myself enough time to accomplish them. So if it takes me a year of failing at an offer, I still have 2 more years to accomplish my overall goal, right? So I remember telling someone I went from 10K to 25K in my offer, which is a pretty significant price increase. And I remember saying that I worked on believing in that 25K before I being completely sold myself, and being willing to get more no's at 25K than at 10K. I got to that place before I started selling it, and it took me 4 months. And I remember a coach telling me, like, why did it take you so long? And what it made me realize is, like, oh, they aren't actually doing that work to actually make it permanent in who they are, as like a deep self-concept shift and how they're showing up that will actually create millions of dollars for them. Because if you've never done it, then it does seem like it would be much quicker than sometimes it is. So you just have to be willing to, like, are you willing to take 4 months to work on one thought that's destroying your webinars, or that one thought between, can I really take people from 0 to 1 million in 12 months? Like, can I sell that to them as a simple idea or concept? Like, could you take a year to work on your beliefs that would get you there?
Stacey talks about committing to this process for 3 years. I take a slightly different approach, and it's committing to this process for 1,000 days. Now, 1,000 days is almost 3 years, but I like thinking about 1,000 days because it means that I'm focused on doing something 1,000 times. I'm focused on it every day. So I think about the outcome that I want to achieve, and then I say, I have 1,000 days for this to happen. What do I need to do on a daily basis in order for this to become a reality? And a large part of that is every day writing down where my doubt is, writing down the objections that I have, writing down the problems that I'm facing, and working through them. That's coaching myself into belief in an outcome. That's my process for implementing exactly what Stacey is talking about in this chat. Stacey, you are a badass. I so enjoy our conversations. Where can people dive into your work and start practicing this? Because I think a lot of people are listening to this and they're like, okay, got it. I need to practice this. Where can someone start to practice?
Perfect. So I want to just preface this. I do work exclusively with coaches. So I prepare people for that because the terminology and the way that I speak is going to be all geared towards coaches. But we have tons of people who listen to my podcast. So feel free. It's free, and I do not hold back on my podcast. It's Make Money as a Life Coach. And then you can also find me on Instagram at Stacey Boehman and staceyboehman.com. But the podcast is where, if they wanted to start, that's where.
So my invitation to you is to notice that there's a theme among the entrepreneurs that I'm talking to in this series. And it's that almost all of them, maybe all of them, decided to do something before they believed that it was possible. And then they went through a multi-year process of believing themselves into reality. That's a weird, I just made up that phrase, but it sounds really cool. They coach themselves into belief. They coach themselves into conviction. It's okay if you don't believe that your goals or your intentions are possible. Just know that you've got to become a different person in order to achieve those things. If you enjoyed this conversation, this is part of a mindset series where I'm chatting with the 8 and 9 figure entrepreneurs that I know and trying to piece together the mindsets that they have in common. So subscribe to the channel if you want to see the full series. And if you want to see the uninterrupted, unedited version of my conversation with Stacey, I released the full thing on my podcast. It's called capitalism.com. It's free. It's on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Just search my name or capitalism.com and look for the interview with Stacey, and you'll see the full thing. I'm Ryan Daniel Moran with capitalism.com. I hope you found value in this conversation with Stacey. If you did, let me know your favorite part in the comments, and I hope to see you on the next episode in this series.